Hey, have you ever wondered why some people always seem to have money, always seem free, while others work hard their entire lives and still can't escape financial worries? If you're sitting there nodding in agreement, then I have a story I want to share with you. It begins with a book that completely changed the way I look at money, at wealth, and even at life itself. That book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and the biggest lesson I took from it, the one I want to explore with you today, is an idea that might shock you. The house you're living in, the one you've always thought was your most valuable asset, might not be an asset at all. Sounds strange, right? Let me take you on this journey, step by step, so you can understand why. First, imagine you're standing at a crossroads. One path is the familiar one, where you're taught to study hard, get a good job, buy a house, start a family, save money, and everything will be fine. That's the road most of us, myself included, were told we had to take. But the other path is different, less traveled, where you learn how to make money work for you, where you don't just live to pay bills but build real freedom. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the map that led me to that second path. And I bet it could be the map for you too. Let me tell you about the first time I picked up this book. I still remember clearly. It was a late evening. I was sitting in my small room, just back from work, exhausted and wondering, what am I doing with my life? My monthly salary was just enough to live on, but I never felt like I was getting ahead. I saved a little, but I was always worried about running out of money. Then a friend introduced me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. At first, I thought it was just another typical self-help book, like one of those get-rich-quick ones you see everywhere online. But the moment I opened the first page, I realized I was wrong. This wasn't a book about how to make millions overnight. It was a punch to the mindset, a wake-up call that made me realize I had misunderstood money for years. The book tells the story of Robert Kiyosaki, a young man who grew up with two dads. The poor dad, his biological father, a highly educated, hard-working man who constantly struggled with money, and the rich dad, his best friend's father, a businessman with no college degree but great financial success. These two dads represented two completely different perspectives on money, and through their stories, Robert learned lessons that schools never teach. I remember sitting up straight when I read the part where the rich dad said, "Your house is not an asset." That sentence was like a lightning bolt in my head. What? A house, the very thing everyone told me to strive to buy, wasn't an asset? It made me curious, and that curiosity pulled me into a journey of financial mindset discovery. Have you ever thought of your house as an asset? I bet you have. I did too. In Vietnam, we grew up with the belief that owning a house is a milestone of success. Parents, friends, colleagues, they all say, try to buy a house, it's the biggest investment of your life. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad made me question that. Is it really true? Why did the rich dad say the opposite? And more importantly, if the house isn't an asset, then what is a real asset? These questions kept spinning in my head, and I began to realize I was trapped in an outdated mindset, a mindset that millions of others are also stuck in. Think about this. From a young age, we're taught to study well, get a stable job, and buy big things like houses and cars. But no one teaches us how to actually manage money, how to make money, generate more money. Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just a book about finances. It's an invitation to reconsider how you think about money. It tells you, hey, you can do things differently. You can live differently. And the first, most foundational lesson is to understand that what you think is an asset, like your house, might actually be quietly pulling you away from your dream of financial freedom. Let me ask you this. If you lost your job tomorrow, would your house help you pay the bills? Or would it become a burden with mortgage payments, maintenance costs, and property taxes? That's when I realized I needed to dive deeper into the mindset of the rich dad. In the next parts, I'll guide you step by step, from understanding what a real asset is to how the rich dad sees a house differently from the poor dad, and how you can start changing the way you manage money today. But before we go any further, I want you to ask yourself, are you willing to question your old beliefs? Are you open to learning a lesson that might change the way you live? If the answer is yes, then stay with me. We're going to explore why the house you live in might not be an asset, and how to begin building real wealth the rich dad way. So you're with me on this journey, ready to uncover why that house you've been dreaming of owning might not be the golden ticket you think it is. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki introduces you to two men who shaped his life, his poor dad and his rich dad. These two figures aren't just characters in a story. They represent two completely different ways of thinking about money, wealth, and yes, that house you're probably picturing right now. Let's dive into their worlds, because understanding their mindsets is the first step to rethinking everything you've been taught about financial success. Picture this. You're a kid, growing up with two role models pulling you in opposite directions. On one side, there's poor dad. He's the kind of person you know well. Maybe he's like your own parents or teachers. He's highly educated, works hard, and believes in the traditional path. Go to school, get good grades, land a stable job, and climb the career ladder. For poor dad, money is something you earn through sweat and long hours. He's the guy who tells you to save every penny, to buy a house because it's a safe investment, and to avoid risks at all costs. He's cautious, practical, and believes that if you just follow the rules, you'll be okay. Sounds familiar, right? It's the advice most of us grow up hearing. The blueprint society hands you for a secure life. Now, let's meet Rich Dad. He's a different breed altogether. Rich Dad didn't finish college, but he's built wealth through entrepreneurship and smart investments. He doesn't work for money. He makes money work for him. Where poor dad sees a paycheck as the goal, Rich Dad sees it as a tool. He's not afraid of risks. In fact, he embraces them, but only after understanding them. To Rich Dad, a house isn't an automatic ticket to wealth. It's a decision that needs to be questioned. He asks, does it put money in your pocket or does it take money out? This question, simple as it sounds, is a game changer. It's the lens through which Rich Dad views every financial choice, and it's about to shake up everything you think you know. Let's break it down. Poor Dad's mindset is all about security. He believes in working hard for a steady income, saving for big purchases like a house, and relying on things like pensions or job benefits for the future. He might tell you, buy a house, it's the biggest investment you'll ever make. He sees homeownership as a milestone, a sign you've made it. But here's the catch. Poor Dad's advice, while well-meaning, often keeps you stuck in what Kiyosaki calls the rat race. You work, you earn, you spend, you borrow, and you repeat, never really getting ahead. You might feel secure, but you're tethered to your job, your bills, and yes, that house payment every month. Rich Dad, on the other hand, plays a different game. His mindset is about freedom, not just security. He doesn't want to work forever to pay for things that don't make him richer. Instead, he focuses on building assets, things that generate income without him clocking in every day. For Rich Dad, money is a tool to create more money, not something you hoard in a savings account or sink into a house that costs you every month. He's the one asking tough questions. Why buy a house that drains your bank account when you could invest in something that pays you back? His approach isn't about playing it safe. It's about playing it smart. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but isn't owning a house a good thing? Doesn't it build wealth over time? That's exactly what I thought before diving into this book. Poor Dad's mindset had me convinced that a house was the ultimate goal, the cornerstone of a successful life. But Rich Dad's perspective made me pause. He doesn't say never buy a house. He says, think about what it really does to your finances. Does it make you richer, or does it tie you down? This clash of mindsets, Poor Dad's caution versus Rich Dad's strategy, is where the real lesson begins. It's not just about houses, it's about how you approach every financial decision in your life. Imagine you're at a crossroads, just like I was when I first read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One path is Poor Dad's, work hard, buy a house, save, and hope for the best. The other is Rich Dad's, learn how money works, invest in things that grow your wealth, and build a life where you're not chained to a paycheck. Which path sounds more like freedom to you? I know which one I chose. And it started with questioning the idea that my house, or the one I dreamed of owning, was automatically an asset. In the next part, we're going to dig deeper into what an asset really is, according to Rich Dad, and why this one idea could flip your financial world upside down. Are you ready to see money through a new lens? You're starting to see the world through the eyes of Rich Dad and Poor Dad. Two men with completely different takes on money. One's telling you to play it safe, work hard, and buy that dream house. The other's challenging you to think bigger, to question what you've always been told. Now, let's get to the heart of the lesson that hit me like a lightning bolt when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the true definition of an asset. You might think you know what an asset is: your house, your car, maybe even your savings account. But Rich Dad's going to turn that idea upside down, and by the end of this, you'll never look at your finances the same way again. So what is an asset really? Let's start with what you've probably been taught. If you're like most people, you've heard that assets are things you own, stuff with value, like your house, your fancy watch, or that shiny car parked in your driveway. Maybe you've even listed these things on a balance sheet, feeling pretty good about your net worth. I get it. I was there too. Before Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I thought owning stuff meant I was building wealth. But Rich Dad has a different definition, and it's so simple yet so powerful that it'll make you rethink everything. He says an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability? That's something that takes money out. That's it. No fluff, no complicated jargon, just a clear line in the sand. Let's break that down. Imagine you're holding your paycheck at the end of the month. You're thinking about what to do with it. Poor Dad would say save it, or better yet, put it toward a big purchase like a house. It's an investment. But Rich Dad stops you in your tracks. He asks, does that purchase put money in your pocket every month, or does it take money out? If it's not generating income like rent, dividends, or profits, it's not an asset in his book. It's a liability, no matter how much it's worth on paper. This was the moment I realized I'd been looking at money all wrong. I was chasing things that made me feel rich, but in reality, they were keeping me stuck. Take your house, for example. You might be thinking, but my house is worth a lot. It's gone up in value since I bought it. Sure, that sounds great, until you dig deeper. Rich Dad's definition doesn't care about market value or what your house might sell for in 10 years. He cares about cash flow. Money moving in or out of your pocket right now. Does your house pay you every month? Or are you paying for it? Mortgage, taxes, maintenance, utilities? If you're shelling out cash to keep it, Rich Dad says it's a liability. Mind-blowing, right? I remember sitting there, book in hand, thinking about all the times I'd heard people call their homes their biggest asset. Suddenly, it didn't add up. Let's make it real for you. Picture your monthly budget. You've got your income, maybe from a job, a side hustle, or freelance work. Now, look at your expenses. If you own a house, you're probably paying a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, maybe even repairs for that leaky roof. Every month, those payments pull money out of your pocket. According to Rich Dad, that makes your house a liability, not an asset. It's not about whether it's valuable or if it makes you feel secure. It's about whether it's actively making you richer. An asset, on the other hand, does the opposite. Think of a rental property that pays you rent every month, or stocks that give you dividends, or a small business that generates profits. Those are the things that build wealth. Why does this matter so much? Because most of us, myself included, before this book, spend our lives chasing liabilities, thinking they're assets. We buy bigger houses, fancier cars, and more stuff, believing it's a sign of success. But Rich Dad's point is brutal and clear. If it's not putting money in your pocket, it's holding you back from financial freedom. I had to sit with that for a while. It was uncomfortable to realize I'd been following Poor Dad's advice, piling up liabilities while thinking I was getting ahead. The truth is, every liability you take on is another weight tying you to the rat race, the endless cycle of working to pay bills. Now, don't get me wrong. Rich Dad isn't saying you should never buy a house or that owning one is a mistake. He's saying you need to understand what it really does to your finances. A house can be a wonderful place to live, raise a family, or build memories, but calling it an asset might be misleading you. The real question is, are you balancing it with true assets, things that generate income? That's where Rich Dad's mindset starts to shine. He wants you to focus on building a portfolio of assets that work for you, so you're not just working for money your whole life. This idea of assets versus liabilities is the foundation of everything Rich Dad, Poor Dad teaches. It's not just about houses, it's about every financial decision you make. When I first grasped this, it felt like someone had handed me a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, I could see which parts of my life were helping me grow wealth and which were dragging me down. In the next part, we're going to zoom in on that house you've been told is your golden ticket. We'll break down why Rich Dad calls it a liability and how this one idea could change the way you plan your financial future. Are you ready to question what you've always believed? You're now seeing money through Rich Dad's lens, where an asset puts cash in your pocket and a liability takes it out. It's a simple rule, but it's already starting to challenge everything you thought you knew. That house you've been dreaming of, the one you've been saving for, the one everyone says is your ticket to financial success, might not be what it seems. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki drops a bombshell. Your house, the place you call home, is often not an asset. Instead, it's a liability that could be holding you back from true wealth. Let's unpack this idea, because understanding why your house isn't an asset is the key to unlocking a smarter way to think about your money. Picture yourself standing in front of your dream house. Maybe it's got a big front yard, a cozy living room, or that perfect kitchen you've always wanted. You've worked hard, saved up, maybe even taken out a loan to buy it. Everyone's cheering you on. Your family, your friends, even your coworkers. Congratulations, they say. You're building wealth. But here's where Rich Dad steps in with a reality check. He asks you one question. Is that house putting money in your pocket every month, or is it taking money out? If you're honest, the answer hits hard. For most people, a house doesn't generate income. It costs you. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, repairs, utilities. All of these pull cash out of your bank account month after month. By Rich Dad's definition, that makes your house a liability. Let's make this real. Imagine you're sitting down with your monthly budget. You've got your income, say from your job or a side gig. Then you list your expenses. If you own a house, you're likely paying a mortgage, which could be a huge chunk of your income. Add in property taxes, which creep up over time. Then there's insurance to protect your home. And don't forget maintenance, fixing a broken pipe, replacing a worn-out roof, or even just painting the walls. These costs add up, and they don't stop. Even if your house's value is rising, you're not seeing that money in your pocket today. Rich Dad's point is crystal clear. If it's draining your cash, it's not an asset, no matter how much you love it or how much it's worth on paper. Now you might be thinking, but wait, my house is going up in value. Isn't that wealth? It's a fair question. I had the same one when I first read the book. Sure, your house might sell for more than you paid for it someday, but Rich Dad doesn't care about potential value in the future. He's focused on cash flow, money moving in or out right now. Until you sell your house, that value is just a number on a real estate app. And even if you do sell, you'll likely need another place to live, so you're not really cashing out, you're just trading one liability for another. Plus, selling comes with costs, agent fees, taxes, maybe even moving expenses. Rich Dad's question remains, is your house working for you? Or are you working for it? Let's flip it around for a second. What would an asset look like? According to Rich Dad, an asset is something like a rental property that pays you rent every month, covering its own costs and putting extra cash in your pocket. Or it's a stock that pays dividends, or a small business that generates profits even when you're not there. These are things that make you richer over time without tying you to a paycheck. Your house, on the other hand, it's more like a hungry pet. It needs constant feeding in the form of payments and upkeep. I remember when this clicked for me. I was looking at my own budget, seeing how much I was spending on my place, and it hit me. I was pouring money into something that wasn't giving anything back. This isn't to say your house is a bad thing. Rich Dad isn't telling you to live on the street or never buy a home. He's saying you need to be honest about what it is. A house can be a wonderful place to build a life, to raise kids, to feel secure, but it's not automatically an asset just because you own it. Calling it an asset can trick you into thinking you're wealthier than you are, while you're still stuck working to cover its costs. I had to face this truth myself. I'd been so proud of the idea of owning a home, but I hadn't stopped to think about what it was really doing to my finances. Why does this matter? Because every dollar you spend on a liability is a dollar you can't invest in a true asset. Every month you're paying for a house that takes money out of your pocket. You're missing a chance to build wealth that works for you. Rich Dad's whole philosophy is about shifting your focus. Stop piling up liabilities that look like success and start building assets that create freedom. When I started seeing my house as a liability, it was a wake-up call. It made me question what else I was spending money on that wasn't helping me get ahead. So, where does this leave you? You're probably starting to wonder why so many people, including you maybe, think of a house as an asset in the first place. That's exactly what we're going to dig into next. There's a reason this idea is so common. And it's not just because it feels good to own a home. There's a whole mindset, a whole system that's been pushing you to see things this way. Let's uncover where this misconception comes from and why it's keeping you from the wealth you could be building. You're starting to see your house in a new light, aren't you? That place you've been told is your greatest asset, your ticket to wealth, might actually be a liability, pulling money out of your pocket every month. It's a tough pill to swallow, especially when everyone around you, family, friends, even financial advisors, keep saying that owning a home is the ultimate goal. So why do you and so many others misunderstand what a house really is? In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki peels back the curtain on this misconception. And it's not just a random mistake. There's a reason you've been led to believe your house is an asset, and uncovering that reason is like flipping on a light switch in a dark room. Let's dive into why you've been misled and how this misunderstanding could be keeping you from true financial freedom. Think about the messages you've heard your whole life. From the time you were young, people probably told you that buying a house is a milestone, a sign you've made it. Maybe your parents said, work hard, save up, and get a place of your own. Maybe your friends bragged about their new homes, posting pictures of their keys online. Or maybe you've seen ads from banks and real estate companies, all pushing the dream of homeownership as the path to stability and wealth. It feels like the whole world is cheering you on to buy that house. But here's the kicker. Rich Dad says this is one of the biggest financial traps out there. The idea that your house is an asset isn't just a misunderstanding, it's a belief that's been drilled into you by a system that benefits from it. Let's start with the biggest culprit, society's definition of success. You've been taught that owning a home equals achievement. It's not just about having a place to live, it's a status symbol, a way to show you're doing better than the next guy. When you sign that mortgage, you get a pat on the back, a sense of pride, maybe even a housewarming party. But Rich Dad asks you to pause and think, who's really winning here? While you're celebrating, you're also signing up for decades of payments, mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs that keep you tied to your job. The bank gets steady interest, the government gets taxes, and you get a liability disguised as an asset. I remember feeling this myself, proud of the idea of owning a home, but blind to what it was actually costing me. Another reason you misunderstand your house is the way assets are defined in traditional accounting. If you've ever looked at a financial statement, your house is listed under assets because it has value. If it's worth more than you owe on it, that's your equity, right? Sounds like a win. But Rich Dad's definition cuts through this like a knife. He doesn't care about paper value or what your house might sell for someday. He cares about cash flow, money in your pocket today. Your house might be worth a lot, but if it's not generating income, it's not an asset in his book. This was a huge wake-up call for me. I'd been so focused on the price tag of a house, I never stopped to think about what it was doing to my monthly cash flow. Then there's the myth of appreciation. You've probably heard people say, buy a house, it always goes up in value. Sure, real estate can appreciate over time, and in some markets, houses do increase in price. But here's what they don't tell you. Appreciation isn't guaranteed. Markets crash, neighborhoods change, and even if your house's value rises, you don't see that money unless you sell. And when you do sell, you've got to deal with fees, taxes, and the cost of finding a new place to live. Plus, while you're waiting for that value to grow, you're still paying the mortgage, maintenance, and more. Rich Dad's point is simple. Banking on future appreciation is speculative, not strategic. True assets don't make you wait, they pay you now. Let's not forget the emotional pull of homeownership. A house isn't just a financial decision, it's personal. It's where you build memories, feel safe, maybe raise a family. Society plays on this, making you feel like renting or not owning makes you less successful. I felt that pressure too, like owning a home was the only way to prove I was on the right track. But Rich Dad challenges this emotional trap. He says, your home can be a wonderful part of your life, but don't confuse it with a financial asset. Mixing emotions with money decisions is how you end up with liabilities you thought were investments. So why does this misconception persist? Part of it is because the system, banks, real estate industries, even governments, benefits from you believing it. Banks make money on your mortgage interest. Real estate agents earn commissions when you buy. Governments collect property taxes. They all have a vested interest in keeping you convinced that a house is your best investment. But Rich Dad sees through this. He wants you to question the narrative, to ask whether the things you're spending your money on are actually making you richer or just keeping you in the rat race. This realization hit me hard. I had to admit I'd bought into the homeownership dream without questioning it. I was chasing what everyone else called success, not what actually built wealth. Understanding why you misunderstand your house is the first step to breaking free from that trap. It's about seeing through the myths and starting to think like Rich Dad. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how Poor Dad's mindset, the one most of us start with, keeps you stuck and why it's so hard to break away from it. Are you ready to see how deep this rabbit hole goes? You're starting to unravel the myth that your house is automatically an asset, and it's probably making you question a lot of what you've been taught about money. That's exactly where I was when Rich Dad Poor Dad flipped my world upside down. You see, the reason so many of us, including me, fall into the trap of thinking homes are our biggest investments is because we've been raised with what Robert Kiyosaki calls Poor Dad's mindset. This mindset isn't about being poor in the literal sense. It's about a way of thinking that keeps you financially stuck, no matter how hard you work or how much you earn. Let's dive into how Poor Dad's mindset traps you and why it's so hard to break free from the cycle it creates. Imagine you're following the path most people take. You go to school, study hard, get a good job, and start climbing that career ladder. You're told this is the way to succeed. Work diligently, save your money, buy a house, and maybe put some cash in a savings account for a rainy day. That's Poor Dad's mindset in a nutshell. It's the advice you hear from well-meaning parents, teachers, or even financial planners. It feels safe, responsible, like you're doing everything right. But here's the problem. Poor Dad's mindset is built on a foundation that prioritizes security over freedom, and it often leads you straight into a financial trap, the rat race. What's the rat race? Picture yourself running on a hamster wheel. You work hard, earn a paycheck, pay your bills, maybe buy a house or a nice car, and then you need to keep working to cover those costs. The more you earn, the more you spend, and the cycle never ends. You're not getting richer, you're just keeping up. Poor Dad's mindset convinces you that this is normal, that working for money your whole life is just how things are. I remember feeling this myself, like I was doing all the right things but still waking up every day to the same financial stress. That's the trap. You're taught to trade your time for money, but never how to make money work for you. Let's talk about how Poor Dad's mindset specifically traps you with your house. Poor Dad sees a house as the ultimate goal, a symbol of success. He tells you to save up for a down payment, take out a mortgage, and own your home because it's a smart investment. But what happens when you follow this advice? You sign up for a 30-year loan, tying up a huge chunk of your income every month. You pay property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs, all while hoping the house's value goes up someday. In the meantime, you're locked into a job to keep up with those payments. If life throws you a curveball, a job loss, a medical emergency, or an unexpected repair, you're stuck because your house isn't generating income to help you out. It's a liability, not a lifeline. Poor Dad's mindset also makes you risk-averse. You're taught to avoid mistakes at all costs, to stick to what's safe and predictable. Buying a house feels like a safe bet because everyone does it, right? But this fear of risk keeps you from exploring other opportunities, like investing in assets that actually put money in your pocket. Poor Dad's advice is to play defense, save, cut costs, and hope for the best. The problem is, playing defense doesn't build wealth, it just keeps you afloat. I had to face this truth myself. I was so focused on stability that I wasn't even thinking about how to grow my money. I was just trying not to lose it. Another way Poor Dad's mindset traps you is by making you dependent on a single source of income, your job. You're taught that a steady paycheck is the key to financial security, so you pour your energy into working harder, getting promotions, or maybe picking up a side hustle. But all that effort goes toward covering liabilities, like your house, instead of building assets that create passive income. Rich Dad, as you'll see later, flips this idea on its head. He wants you to have multiple streams of income, so you're not at the mercy of one job or one bad month. Poor Dad's mindset, though, keeps you tethered to that paycheck, making it hard to break free. Why is this mindset so hard to escape? Because it's everywhere. It's in the advice you get from loved ones, the ads you see pushing homeownership, the financial systems that make borrowing for a house so easy. It's reinforced by the pride you feel when you sign those mortgage papers, or the approval you get from others when you say you're a homeowner. I fell for it too, thinking I was building wealth when I was really just building debt. Poor Dad's mindset feels comfortable because it's familiar, but that comfort is what keeps you stuck in the rat race, working to pay for things that don't make you richer. Breaking free starts with recognizing the trap. Poor Dad's mindset isn't wrong because it's malicious. It's just limited. It's designed for a world where a steady job and a house were enough to get by. But in today's world, that's not enough to achieve financial freedom. You have to start questioning the rules you've been taught, like the idea that your house is your biggest asset. Once you see how Poor Dad's mindset keeps you running in circles, you're ready to explore Rich Dad's approach, the one that opens the door to a different kind of life. In the next part, we'll dive into how Rich Dad's mindset can set you free, starting with how he views your house differently. Are you ready to start thinking like the rich? You've seen how Poor Dad's mindset traps you, keeping you running in the rat race, chasing things like a house that you thought were assets, but are actually draining your wallet. It's a tough realization, isn't it? I know it was for me when I first read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But now, let's shift gears and step into the world of Rich Dad, whose way of thinking is like a breath of fresh air. His mindset isn't about playing it safe or following the crowd. It's about breaking free from financial chains and building a life where money works for you. And when it comes to your house, Rich Dad's perspective is a game changer. He sees homes as liabilities, not assets, and understanding why can set you on the path to true financial freedom. Let's dive into how Rich Dad's mindset frees you. First, let's revisit Rich Dad's golden rule. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes it out. It's so simple, yet it cuts through all the noise you've been taught about money. When you apply this rule to your house, the place you live, the one you're paying a mortgage on, Rich Dad's view is crystal clear. Your home, no matter how much you love it or how much it's worth, is a liability if it's costing you money every month. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, repairs, these are all cash flowing out, not in. Rich Dad doesn't care if your house might sell for a profit someday. He's focused on what's happening to your bank account right now. And for most people, a house is a constant to see you. Stuart, I found myself nodding along as I read this part, realizing I'd been looking at my own home all wrong. So what makes Rich Dad's mindset so liberating? It's his focus on cash flow over appearances. Poor Dad's mindset tells you to buy a house because it's a symbol of success, a smart investment that makes you look wealthy. Rich Dad, on the other hand, doesn't care about looking wealthy. He cares about being wealthy. He wants you to prioritize things that generate income, like investments or businesses, over things that drain your resources, like a home you live in. This shift in thinking is what sets you free. Instead of tying up your money in a liability that demands constant payments, Rich Dad pushes you to invest in assets that build wealth over time. It's about creating a future where you're not working to pay bills, but living off income your assets produce. Let's make this practical. Imagine you've got $1,000 extra each month after covering your basics. Poor Dad's mindset might say, put it toward a bigger house or a better car, but Rich Dad says, use it to buy something that pays you back, like a rental property, stocks, or a side business. Your house, the one you live in, doesn't do that. Every month, you're paying for it, maybe $2,000, $3,000 or more, depending on your mortgage and other costs. That's money leaving your pocket, not entering it. Rich Dad's mindset frees you by helping you see that every dollar spent on a liability is a dollar you can't invest in an asset. I remember when this hit me. I was so caught up in the idea of owning a home that I hadn't realized how much it was holding me back from building real wealth. Rich Dad's view isn't about never owning a home. He's not saying you should rent forever or live without a place you love. He's saying don't confuse your home with an investment. A house can be a wonderful part of your life, your sanctuary, your family's foundation, but it's not working for you financially. Rich Dad wants you to separate your emotional attachment to your home from your financial strategy. For him, wealth comes from owning things that generate income, not things that cost you money to maintain. This mindset shift was huge for me. I started asking myself, what's actually making me richer? And realized my home wasn't on that list. Another key to Rich Dad's mindset is his willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. Everyone around you, friends, family, even financial advisors, might say a house is your best investment. But Rich Dad dares you to question that. He asks, who benefits when you buy a house? The bank gets years of interest payments. The government gets property taxes. The real estate industry gets commissions. Rich Dad's mindset frees you by encouraging you to think for yourself, to look at the numbers, and to focus on what builds your wealth, not theirs. It's about taking control of your financial decisions instead of following the crowd. This mindset also means rethinking what security looks like. Poor Dad's mindset equates security with a steady job and a house you own. Rich Dad sees security in financial independence, having enough assets generating income that you don't need to rely on a paycheck. Your house might make you feel secure, but if it's tying you to a job to cover its costs, is it really freedom? Rich Dad's approach is about creating options so you're not stuck working forever to pay for a liability. When I started thinking this way, I felt a weight lift. I wasn't just working to keep up, I was working toward a life where money wasn't a constant worry. Rich Dad's mindset is liberating because it gives you permission to dream bigger. Instead of sinking all your resources into a house that takes money out of your pocket, you can start building a portfolio of assets that grow over time. It's about shifting from a consumer mindset to an investor mindset. In the next part, we'll break down the real costs of owning a home so you can see exactly how much your house might be taking from you and why Rich Dad's way of thinking could change everything. Are you ready to look at the numbers and see the truth for yourself? You're now deep into Rich Dad's way of thinking, where the line between assets and liabilities is crystal clear. Assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take it out. Your house, the one you've been told is your greatest investment, is starting to look more like a liability than an asset. But just how much is it really costing you? In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki forces you to confront the numbers to see the true financial impact of owning a home. Let's break it down and analyze the real costs of homeownership so you can understand why Rich Dad calls your house a liability and how it might be holding you back from building wealth. Get ready. This might make you rethink every dollar you're spending. Picture yourself sitting at your kitchen table, laptop open, looking at your monthly budget. You've got your income on one side, your paycheck, maybe some side hustle cash. On the other side, you've got your expenses, and if you're a homeowner, your house is likely eating up a big chunk of that. Let's start with the obvious, your mortgage payment. For most people, this is the single biggest expense every month. Whether it's $1,000, $2,000 or more, it's money leaving your pocket, going straight to the bank. And here's the thing. Most of that payment, especially in the early years, is interest, not even reducing the principal you owe. Rich Dad's question echoes in your mind. Is this putting money in your pocket? Nope, it's taking it out, month after month. But the mortgage is just the beginning. Let's add in property taxes, which can be hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year, depending on where you live. These don't go away, and they often go up over time. Then there's homeowner's insurance, because you've got to protect your asset, right? That's another regular expense, maybe a few $100 a month. And don't forget maintenance, fixing a leaky faucet, replacing a broken air conditioner, or repainting the exterior. These costs can sneak up on you, and they're not optional. If you don't keep up with repairs, your house's value could take a hit, or worse, it could become unlivable. I remember looking at my own expenses and being shocked at how much I was spending just to own my place. It felt like I was pouring money into a black hole. Now let's talk about utilities: electricity, water, gas, internet. If you're renting, some of these might be covered, but as a homeowner, they're all on you. These costs add up, maybe another $300 or $400 a month, depending on the size of your home. And if you've got a homeowners association, tack on those fees too. Then there's the less obvious stuff, like landscaping or unexpected repairs. A new roof could set you back thousands. Rich Dad's lens makes it painfully clear. Every one of these expenses is money flowing out of your pocket. By his definition, your house isn't an asset, it's a liability that keeps demanding more. You might be thinking, but my house is appreciating, it's worth more now than when I bought it. That's a common argument, and I had it too when I first wrestled with this idea. Sure, your home's value might go up over time, but let's break that down. First, appreciation isn't guaranteed. Real estate markets can crash, as many people found out the hard way in 2008. Second, even if your house's value rises, you're not seeing that money unless you sell. And selling comes with its own costs: real estate agent fees, closing costs, maybe capital gains taxes. Plus, where are you going to live after you sell? You'll likely need another place, which means you're just swapping one liability for another. Rich Dad's focus is on cash flow, not paper gains, and your house isn't delivering cash flow, it's draining it. Let's do a quick mental exercise. Imagine your monthly house-related expenses total $2,500. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance. That's $30,000 a year leaving your pocket. Now, what if you could redirect even half of that toward assets that generate income, like a rental property or dividend-paying stocks? Over time, those assets could start putting money back in your pocket, maybe $500 or $1,000 a month. That's between poor dad's liabilities and rich dad's mindset, investing in assets. When I ran these numbers for myself, it was a wake-up call. I realized how much my house was costing me, not just in money, but in missed opportunities to build wealth. Rich Dad's point isn't that you should never own a home. He's not saying you have to live like a nomad or rent forever. He's saying you need to be honest about what your house is doing to your finances. Every dollar you spend on it is a dollar you can't use to buy true assets, things that make you richer without requiring you to work harder. This was a tough truth for me to face. I loved my home, but I had to admit it wasn't helping me achieve financial freedom. It was a liability, plain and simple, and recognizing that was the first step toward thinking like Rich Dad. So what's the alternative? That's where Rich Dad's mindset starts to get exciting. Instead of sinking all your money into a house that costs you every month, what if you could own something that pays you? In the next part, we'll explore how Rich Dad turns the idea of real estate on its head, showing you how properties like rentals can become true assets. It's a glimpse into how the rich build wealth while you're still paying for liabilities. Are you ready to see what a real asset looks like and how it could change your financial future?